I didn't expect a grand party or a 3-tier cake, just maybe a hug, a card, a happy birthday would have sufficed. But when I walked into my parents' house that evening, the place I'd called home for nearly 3 decades, I knew something was off. The lights were dimmed, soft music played in the background, and the scent of baked lasagna, my favorite, drifted in from the kitchen. A flicker of hope bloomed in my chest. Did they actually remember this year? It was my 29th birthday. Not a milestone, but close. And after years of being quietly forgotten, maybe this was the year they'd finally see me. Then Mira walked in. She floated through the hallway like she always did, the golden girl, the miracle child, the one whose laugh made my parents' eyes sparkle. Dressed in her signature whites and golds, hair pulled back in a perfect braid, she looked like she'd stepped out of a family magazine. And then came the chorus, surprise. I stood frozen as balloons burst from the hallway, and my parents came rushing in, holding a cake. Not my cake, the frosting raid. Congratulations, Mira. They didn't even see me. Not really. Mom wrapped Mira in a hug, kissing her on the cheek. Dad beamed, raising a glass of wine. To Mira, our brightest star. So proud of your promotion, sweetheart. I cleared my throat. No one turned. I cleared it again, louder this time. Dad glanced over, startled. Oh, I didn't realize you were coming tonight. Didn't realize. I had RSVP'd. Twice, and it was my birthday. Mom finally acknowledged me. You could have said something earlier if you wanted a fuss, dear. But really, you know Mira's news is much bigger than a birthday. She's the only one worth celebrating right now. I felt it then. Like something inside me cracked. Not a snap, not yet, but the creak of a dam that had held too much for too long. I forced a smile. Right, of course, wouldn't want to take away from Mira's moment. Mira, in her usual tone of performative guilt, tilted her head. You didn't tell them it was your birthday. That's so passive-aggressive, I didn't think I had to remind them, I said quietly. No one responded. The conversation floated back to her raise, her new office, her latest yoga retreat. I stood there like wallpaper, existing, but not really present. The lasagna they made, for Mira, her favorite. The wine, Mira's brand. Even the playlist was her Spotify mix. Every detail stung like a wasp. Every laugh that excluded me was another reminder. In this house, I was the shadow behind the spotlight. It wasn't just tonight. It was every school play where I played the tree and she was Juliet. Every birthday when she got a joint present for my day. Every college rejection I faced alone while they helped her pack for Stanford. Every time I cried quietly so they wouldn't call me too sensitive. But this was the final straw. The moment when the grief hardened into something colder. I left before dessert. No one stopped me. Outside, the air was crisp. Autumn leaves crunched under my boots as I walked to my car. I didn't cry, not this time. Something inside had shifted. The hurt hadn't disappeared, but it had morphed, twisted into a quiet resolve. You're the only one worth celebrating. The words played on repeat in my mind, like a cruel lullaby. But instead of curling into a ball, I smiled, because for the first time in 29 years, I wasn't waiting to be seen. I was going to make them watch, not with shouting or accusations, not with desperation, but with silence, with distance, with success. They would learn what it felt like to be on the outside of someone's life, and when they finally came knocking, if they did, they wouldn't find the same girl who once begged to be loved. They'd find a woman who no longer needed them. They didn't call the next day, not my parents, not Mira. No, are you okay, or where did you go? Not even a text, and somehow that made things easier. I deleted their numbers that night. No more waiting, no more hoping, no more sitting in the shadows, silently rehearsing what I'd say if they finally asked how I was doing. I was done folding myself into the spaces they left empty. That Monday, I handed in my resignation. I worked as a mid-level project coordinator at a startup in Boston, a place where I'd been quietly overworked and undercredited for years. Just like at home, and just like at home, no one there celebrated my birthday either. The day I left, I walked out of that office with no plan, no job lined up, and no idea what came next. But I felt free, Laptop computer, the rise of Re. I moved to Providence, Rhode Island, not far, but far enough to disappear. A small loft apartment with brick walls and high ceilings, quiet, my own. I used what little savings I had and spent the first few weeks doing what I hadn't allowed myself to in years, resting. I slept, I read, I walked alone, I breathed without explaining, and then I started building. Photography had always been my secret love, a quiet talent I hid behind halves, miles, and hobby talk. But now I leaned in fully. I launched a portfolio site, offering affordable portrait sessions for new professionals and small businesses. At first, it was slow, but word spread. A local influencer hired me, then a startup, then a wedding planner. By the 6-month mark, I was booking clients weeks in advance, running branding shoots for small businesses, and teaching weekend classes at a community center. And the best part, I was finally seen, not by my parents, not by Mira, but by strangers who respected me, who paid me, who referred their friends because they believed in my work. No guilt, no comparisons, just me. Unfreezing the past, I didn't look back until I had something worth looking back from. One morning in April, I got an unexpected message through my photography page. "Hi, this is Ava. I work in PR at Trinex Corp. Would you be open to working with our team on a personal branding campaign for one of our execs? She's a rising leader, and we're looking for a photographer to help humanize her image." I almost ignored it until I read the name of the exec, Mira Dalton. My sister, I laughed out loud, of course. The universe loved irony. I replied professionally, curious more than bitter. We set a meeting. I never used my full name on my website, so they had no idea who I was. When the Zoom call started, Mira's face filled the screen. She looked tired, not broken, just slightly frayed. There was a tightness around her mouth she used to hide better. Ava did the talking. "Re, this is Mira Dalton, VP of Operations at Trinex. She's a rising name in corporate leadership, but her image needs warmth, something more relatable. Your style is exactly what we're looking for." Amira stared at me, puzzled. "Have we met before?" I smiled calmly, "Not officially, but I know of you." She tilted her head. "You look so familiar." A pause, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but she didn't recognize me. I didn't let her. We ended the call. I didn't accept the job, but I didn't delete the recording either. Detective truth, uncovered curiosity itched at me. I searched Mira's name, digging deeper. Trinex was successful, but not spotless. Whispers of internal complaints. Anonymous tips. A recent employee had left with a thinly veiled LinkedIn post about credit being stolen at the top. I reached out, gently, anonymously, respectfully. It took weeks, but one conversation led to another. I discovered that Mira's promotion hadn't been earned, not fully. She had taken the ideas of a junior analyst and passed them off as her own. The analyst had left, bitter and silenced by an NDA. It wasn't illegal, but it was unethical. Classic Mira. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside of whispers. So I published an anonymous story, a blog post written as a case study titled, "The Invisible Climb, When Quiet Workers Are Overshadowed by Loud Leaders." It didn't name Mira. But people inside the company knew. They always knew. The post trended for a day on LinkedIn, and just like that, the shine started to wear off. Mira didn't lose her job, but her halo slipped. Invitations stopped pouring in. She posted less, smiled less. And I watched, not with joy, but with clarity. Reflections. A year passed. I didn't speak to my parents. They never reached out. Sometimes I checked their Facebook. Mira was still the star, but the captions were shorter now. Less bragging, more formality. I could have reached out, thrown the past in their faces, demanded an apology. But why? I wasn't that girl anymore. I was the woman who took her own birthday off, rented a cabin by the lake, and celebrated alone, with wine, candles, and a camera. Not lonely, free. I took a self-portrait that night, just me standing in the mirror, bare, faced, no filters. The caption I wrote beneath it when I posted it later read, "Storms don't apologize for the rain, and I don't apologize for the woman I've become." 1 year later to the day. October 12th, my 30th birthday. Funny how a number can feel like a line in the sand. a clean divide between the version of you that waited and the version that walks away. This time, I didn't spend the day hoping someone would remember. I invited them to. Party popper, the invitation, it wasn't out of guilt or reconciliation, it was closure on my terms. The envelope was black with gold foil lettering. You are invited to the 30th birthday of Reed Dalton location. The Glass House, Providence dress code, formal time, 6 p.m. RSVP required. I sent one to my parents. One to Mira, no note, no explanation, just a clean, elegant reminder that I still existed, not as a sister, not as a daughter, but as me. I didn't expect them to come, but they did. Classical the party, the Glass House was a rooftop venue I'd fallen in love with during one of my first client shoots. All glass and light, just like I wanted to feel, just like I had become. It wasn't about flaunting success. It was about showing I had survived and then thrived. The guest list was small, 40 people who mattered. Clients turned friends, local artists, my photography students, a few mentors. Real connections, people who saw me before I was someone. I wore a floor-length emerald gown. My curls were pinned back, lips painted wine red. My camera stayed in my bag tonight. I didn't need to hide behind the lens. At 6:27 p.m., just as the sun dipped below the skyline, they walked in. My parents, Mira, all three dressed perfectly, all three visibly uncomfortable. For the first time in my life, they felt like the outsiders in my world. The encounter, they approached me near the bar. Happy birthday, my mother said, eyes scanning the crowd like she was at a gallery opening. Everything is beautiful, said Dad stiffly. We didn't know you'd done so well for yourself. Mira said nothing. She looked at me with that same unreadable expression she wore during the Zoom call months ago, like she was trying to place me. I'm glad you came, I said, and I meant it. I wasn't sure you would. We were surprised to get the invite. Mom admitted. After last year, we thought you were upset. I sipped my champagne, was I? I guess I was, but I'm not anymore. She gave a tight smile. We didn't mean to hurt you. I nodded, I know. Mira finally spoke. Why now? Why invite us? I met her gaze, calm and unshaken. Because I wanted you to see the woman I became without you. Performing arts, the toast at 7:45 p.m. I stood near the stage as the lights dimmed and the soft music faded. Glasses clinked as I raised my own. Thank you all for coming tonight. I began. 30 years is a strange thing. You start to count your life in lessons instead of days. A few chuckles. I spent a long time thinking being seen meant being celebrated. That maybe if I was good enough, quiet enough, or useful enough, someone would finally notice. I paused. Mira looked away. My parents shifted, but I learned something else. Visibility doesn't come from others. It comes from choosing not to disappear, not to shrink, not to wait. A beat of silence. My heart was steady, so tonight, I celebrate not just 30 years of life, but the moment I stopped waiting for someone to tell me I mattered. The crowd applauded. Behind the noise, I saw my parents standing there, still smiling, but not quite proudly. And for once, I didn't need them to be. Sparkles the quiet good. Bye, they left early. No drama, no scenes. Just a half-hearted hug from my mother and a week proud of you. From Dad that felt 2 decades late. Mira lingered. I guess you win, she said quietly. This wasn't a game, I replied. She hesitated. Still, I didn't expect you to turn out like this. I smiled. That's the thing about shadows, Mira. They grow when you don't notice the light. She walked away, head low. And I turned back to my guests, to my party, to the world I'd built. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove me right. Candle final words when the last guest left and the lights dimmed. I stood alone on the rooftop. One last candle burned on the edge of the cake. I closed my eyes and made a wish, not for love, or success, or even forgiveness. I wished only for this, that I would never again abandon myself to be accepted by others. Because I was worth celebrating, always was, always will be.